Thank you for being here. I'm Bob Walheim, as you know, and I moved to the U.S. A year and 4 months ago, and working for a company called CINT, Brazilian original but multinational, present all over the world. And when I arrived, I felt two things. First was I became no one here, and I don't think it's about prejudice. I think it's about the difficulty of understanding Portuguese and understanding the Brazilian culture. And second, by that, I was exactly no one. I got invited to nothing. I couldn't share anything that I done in the past. And in one of the trips that I do by car, from where I live in Venice to where our offices are here in Oakland, I had the insight, why don't I do something about that? And at that time, my work. I started to think, what is my work? What am I doing at the work, at the day-to-day at CINT? And I came with that word, orchestration. I was doing lots of things that were very different from the traditional inspiring leader, the big guy that everyone follows. And I started, in one of these trips, driving, I had the insight, why I don't mix those two things? Why I don't start talking about that and do it in English and launch it here? And here we are, right? So Gary and Thais were a long time ago, a couple of months ago, they were the first two people that I talked, and they said, yeah, let's launch that at Startse, remember? And we had a great coffee, Gary, and Gary was like, but he had lots of questions. And at the end, he gave me a hug. I said, I think you have a project, remember that? Right, so here we are. And the orchestration, quickly, it's about, a new way of leadership after pandemic times, in a super complex world, totally distributed, and now with AI. And I think there's not enough space for a traditional inspiring leader that everyone follows. First, because people don't want to follow someone, right? So people are becoming more themselves, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of space for orchestrators that can, like in a symphony, they don't play any instrument, but they kind of make things happen. Not alone with all the musicians in the orchestra, but and that's what I talk about in the book.
Bom dia.
Boa noite.
So boa noite. So that you can tell how much Portuguese I have, right? Okay. So thank you all for coming. It's an honor and a privilege to be invited to be part of this conversation. I have done, I think, countless talks in this room on topics like the future of work. Thais and Felipe and the team have given me one of the greatest gifts in my life, which is to meet so many amazing people from Brazil. I was just there a couple of months ago, lecturing for several weeks. I've got a number of different hats that I wear that I spin constantly. So I'm the chair for the future of work with Singularity University. I've got my own book on the future of work called The Next Rules of Work, which was just recently translated into Portuguese. So, of course, I can't even read it. And I've got 10 courses on LinkedIn Learning with about 1.4 million learners, topics like learning mindset, leading change, and skills for the future of work. And one of the great gifts that I have is to be able to talk to so many different audiences around the world about issues related to the future of work, the future of learning, and the future of organizations. And one of the greatest sets of questions I get all the time is, well, what is it like to lead in a post-pandemic world? We've all gone through what I call the Great Reset of the global pandemic. And what that's catalyzed is a whole set of questions. Why do we work? How do we learn? How do we help others to be able to, how do we lead them to be able to deal with a world of exponential change, because I think that's what we've all sort of figured out. And so to me, when Bob started walking through sort of his vision for the book, I said, well, so one of the reasons that I said you have the project is because we're all, I think, after this reset, we're all sort of seeking the answers to a bunch of very basic questions. And if you are in an organization of one, it's just you, or if you're an organization with thousands of people or anything in between, when humans come together to try to create value for their stakeholders, there's a set of decisions they need to make, and they often need somebody to be helping to guide how that work happens. And the old industrial era models that we've inherited, I think, are no longer sufficient for a world of exponential change. We need new models. And so that's one of the reasons that I've been so supportive of the mindset and the skill set that's needed for orchestration, because I think we have to embrace these new models if we want to be able to help people to be able to have meaningful work, and if we want to be able to continually navigate a world of exponential change. So I'll stop there.
I'm so happy already. Thank you, Gary. We don't need to talk anymore.
Okay, this is it, guys. Okay, thank you. No, it's a pleasure to be here, trying to manage a conversation between these two wonderful guys. So I prepared some questions, which I'm pretty sure that we won't use on them all, considering the background of people who I'm talking to, but you guys are invited to also ask whatever you think that is interesting for you. So let's start with the trends. You said that AI and post-pandemic is one of the main reasons that made you think about orchestration and new leadership. So what is the relationship between this AI new season that we are living and the challenges of the necessity of new leadership skills?
All right, that's a good question. I think the pandemic made the invitation that Gary just explained, right, to rethink everything. And AI, from a leadership perspective, I think makes an invitation for us to be more human. We think it's the opposite. We think machines will do everything, but from a leadership perspective, I think we need to become more humans, because we are more or less machines. We don't like to hear that, but lots of the work that we do is repetitive. Lots of the work we do, like all the emails that we respond, are very repetitive. We have a model, and when AI starts to help us on those things, what remains to us? The more human stuff. We say the opposite. We say, oh, we are very human. No machine will substitute us. Yes, I agree with that. But I think our day-to-day work is more machine than human. The biggest part of our day is repetition. And the moment we have a replacement for that, the talent of leading people, orchestrating, will emerge. And although everyone says, like, no, I'm very human, blah, 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 most of us aren't. I think that's a big provocation that I'm doing myself. And, because we as leaders, we think it's not repetitive, it's my talents, my guts, my intuition, my experience. Yes, it's all that, but it's a little piece. Most of the job is very repetitive.
All right, so I want to play off the orchestration mindset as well. So imagine that you lead an orchestra. You're a conductor, and you're trying to guide the. Please hop in. You're trying to guide the talents of amazing people, and all the players come in. Yeah, there's more. Yeah, please jump in front, and then there's more in back. So all the players arrive, and several of the players have learned a brand new instrument overnight. What would you do if you're leading, if you're trying to orchestrate that? You have to adapt as someone who leads. Now, what if the next day a bunch of people come in and they've invented new instruments? Well, this is what I believe. So absolutely agree with the doubling down on humanity. And then what happens when each of us as humans, we have this tool set that allows us to solve problems in completely new ways? What if we can think in different ways? What if a bunch of you get together and you design a new instrument together and you learn it overnight and then now you're using it in your work? So this is a completely different mindset for somebody who leads. Is what if you don't get to tell people the skill set they have to have, the things that they have to play? What if instead you are empowering them to do the best that they can and even to come up with new ways to solve problems? What if you're going to orchestrate that? That's a completely different mindset. And so that's another answer to me of the reason why this AI moment, this AI tsunami that we're all sort of being washed in, is creating a completely different need for the people who can lead.
Very good. Well, guys, we will have a copy of this book for each one who's here tonight. So Bob will be signing up for all of you. And I had the pleasure to read before, and I know that all the orchestration method is based on 7 key drivers that help leaders to build an orchestration behavior, mindset, whatever we can think of. And one of these 7 key drivers is what Bob calls considerate. And very interesting thing about these key drivers is that he shows us not only the theory behind it, but what kind of behaviors we need to avoid or to have to try to build it. So when I think about considerate and what considerate means, I think about a huge challenge that we guys have nowadays, and I'm pretty sure all you guys have too, because I face it all the time. That is how to really listen, and how to really be present listening to someone's problem or answer or challenge, and to be interested about it. That's what you say in the book, like, okay, you need to be truly interested about what people is trying to bring you as a solution or as a problem or as a challenge, because we are living in such a world where so many information is coming over, so many problems to solve, so many choices that we need to make. How to be 100% present on it?
You have to read the book to get the answer. No, but jokes apart. No, I think there are a few things that are important. First, you gotta let go a lot of stuff that you know, that you think, that you're wise and you're expert, everything. Secondly, and that's a big paradigm shift, you have to care about people, not workers. If you can't care of what they are feeling and what they want, or if you don't care, if you just see a worker in front of you in any conversation, it's impossible to be considerate, because you will be asking questions about the work, and people want to be treated as humans. That's at least I believe it. It is about, if the subject is about work, it will be about work, but people want to be treated as persons, not as workers. Right? So I think pandemic made a big, oh, I can be a person? Yes, right? Because we were too in an automatic mode. So I think to be considerate, you have to let go your stuff and care about the people, right? But that genuinely. There's a piece on the book that I talk about, like, isn't an orchestrator a conspirator? Right? So it's very different, because you cannot fake it. So I'm faking I'm interested in what you feel or what you want. That won't take you long. And that's basically what people are trying to do. They don't even care. They do the question, how are you? But they don't listen to any answer. They don't care. They're not expecting any answer. If someone says, I'm not good, say, okay, all right, it happens, a crisis, and let's move on, and let's talk about work, right? So I had a few moments, in the last couple of years, where I asked the person, how are you? And the person didn't say anything, because it was work environment. But I saw the face. And it was through Zoom, not presentially. I saw the face, and in some cases I said, doesn't sound, you're good. And then it opens a huge avenue of conversation and connection. Anxiety went down. Intense conversations, yes. But then people said, oh, you do care how I feel? Yes, I do. Right? But what about work? Yeah, we can talk about that in a moment. But first, let's fix how you're feeling. And that's very hard. And I think the final thing is that you got to be okay with yourself, right? If you're trying to prove that you're the best, you're the awesome, you're blah, 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 you can't be considerate with anyone, right? So you got to feel like, I'm in a good place, I feel good about myself, and depending on where you are, I feel good about myself, I'm okay. I know my weaknesses, I've done with them, I'm dealt with them, I'm okay with them, and I'm not trying to prove that I'm the best, I'm the leader, I'm the inspiring, I'm the boss, I'm everything, right? So, and it's a long exercise. The interesting thing is that it is liberating. It sounds like when we know everything, that we're the inspired leader, there's huge pressure on us that we don't realize all the time. We kind of forget that. Gary has some provocations I see on his face.
Here's the challenge, I think. For many who learned how to lead in the old rules, like the pre-pandemic, and especially hierarchical organizations and that sort of thing, is certain behaviors were rewarded. You were rewarded from being the one who had all the answers. You're rewarded from being the one who was always in charge. You're rewarded for being the one to tell everybody what to do. And then now we then go through this great reset, and you're looking through the Zoom call, and you're looking into the homes of the people that you work with for the first time. And you suddenly realize that there is all of this other human capacity, all this other aspects of being human. You might not have even known that they play guitar, but there's a guitar on the wall. You might not have known that they had kids, but there are kids running around. You might not have known there's a sick aunt. So these are all what I think of as we're kind of like icebergs. There's this part under the waterline that we kind of hide from each other, and have in the past done that in work. And now we're asking that person who leads to say, well, wait a minute, you've got to embrace the entire human. But you were rewarded in the past for not doing that. And so that is an adjustment. That's a big adjustment for a lot of people. And so what unfortunately, the old rules would reinforce is, oh, you can just fake authenticity. You can just pretend that you care about, the people, and you can ask the sort of, the checklist of questions, and you get through asking how the kids are and you're done. But what you are talking about is a commitment to authenticity on an ongoing basis, and consideration, continually considering the full human, all of the different aspects of them. And that is a new mindset. Like it's a big adjustment. What I would encourage people who have to go through that adjustment is to think about, again, to orchestration, is you want to know every player in the band. You want to know what motivates them. You want to help them to channel what they're going through so that they can produce the best. And then others know if there's somebody that's having challenges, then that's what we do. We band together to be able to support that person.
As I said, we have 7 crew drivers, and one of them is called detaching. Do you want to explain what detaching is?
Yeah, be detached, right? So it's we all have and we should have convictions and ideas, but to listen is the first driver, is receptive listener. To listen, you gotta be able to disconnect from those ideas, not forget them, not give up on them, but if you don't disconnect from the convictions and ideas you have, you will not be able to listen, because you will be objecting and thinking about a smart thing that you will respond next.
But let me try bring my point to you. We're facing a very, very polarized world. We know if you're red, you're not blue. If you're salty, you're not sugary. I can be both. I need to choose between them. I can choose both. How to detach when we are talking about building leadership, building teams, how to detach for this that's the world is saying to us that it's so important to bring my opinion and my side of my point of view.
I don't know about the big things that you mentioned, right? So, but about business, I think it's my understanding is we gotta understand it's just a business, right? We're taking it too serious, you know. There's a piece in the book that I talk about purpose, you know. I think it's beautiful, but I think, you know, maybe just meaning is something that, you know, our lives and the companies should have, but purpose is like we put it way too high, way too complicated. So I think in the business environment, I think it's easier, right? So it's like it's a business, it's a job, you know. I don't have to win. I don't know who is right or who is wrong, or I don't know if I am right or I'm wrong. When you talk about like the things that you mentioned, it becomes a lot more complicated. Maybe Gary has some ideas that I don't have, but I don't know. But maybe it's a good start. You know, orchestration in NGOs and maybe in governments. Maybe I won't go there because I need to study more about that. But in business, I think it's very possible, because at the end of the day, it's very simple stuff. Right? We get in love with so many strong convictions. They're just ideas. They might work, they will not. And it gets easier if we, you know, sometimes just listen, don't express everything, or orchestrate like I was doing with my colleague Leo today about something that we did yesterday. You know, we had a coffee before, we were just chatting. He heard me, he changed his mind a little bit here and there. It's an orchestration. I was not trying to prove I was right? So, yeah, because it's just a business, right? So.
When I first read that section, I'll tell you some of the responses that I had. Well, the first is that what I read into is the especially very traditional leading is reactive. So we tend to hear something, and if we feel the pressure to be the one with all the answers, or we think that something is challenging us or triggering us, then we have an automatic response to either react or push back, and so the detachment to me is not caring. Obviously, it's pausing, it's being present, it's really listening, not reacting, and making sure that we understand. And those are all hard things to do, especially if you feel tremendous pressure in your work role. You feel like you're the one that has to continually deliver, you know, the next sale or to the next widget or that sort of thing. The more those pressures are on you, the more you want to react, the more you want to tell people what to do. And then the other thing that I responded to was to not fall in love with your own answer. That detachment is you might have given the same answer 20 times in the past, and then you think somebody's asking you the same question, and you realize, wait a minute, I'm not just going to default to the way we've already done things. I'm not going to default to the way I've responded to this in the past. Instead, I'm going to try to really listen with fresh ears and see with fresh eyes so that I can respond appropriately and in the moment. I mean, I don't know if those were my responses when I read about that.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
What a class. Thank you. Another key driver, unlocks potential. And it's good because we have a very mixed audience here of seniority, experience. And when I think about unlocking potential in a orchestration model, it's easy to me to think how to manage work between senior people, experienced people, people who knows better what they are doing. But when I think about working with junior people or leading junior people to be prepared to the market, I have some doubts on how to do this. And I'm trying to not make this a framework, because I'm very close to someone who loves frameworks, but how to unlock potential when people is not ready yet. And I know that nobody is fully ready, but people who's in the beginning of the career.
Why don't we start with Gary?
Okay.
All right, so Thais and Bob know, are there any college students in the room? Anybody in college? Okay, all right. I don't have enough college to stuff into a thimble. I was never interested in college. My family had no money, so I didn't have any financial support, and I ended up just jumping into the world of work. And I did odd jobs for 7 or 8 years. But one of the odd jobs I did was working in the family business. And it just so happens that my father was a recovering minister up in San Francisco, and he wrote the world's career manual. It's a book called What Color is Your Parachute? It's in 17 languages, including Portuguese. It's sort of the book that your parents would give you as you're about to leave college and go into the world of work and say, you should figure out what you should want to do with yourself. So imagine at the age of 19, you've been trained how to help people to learn about their own skills, to see, what's below that waterline in the iceberg, like what you're interested in, what fascinates you. Imagine you've been taught that, and you're telling other people how to go through that process in your life. And so what I had the gift of, and what resonated with me with what Bob was talking about, is that we are often icebergs to ourselves. We don't actually see that potential. We often can't see below the waterline. We weren't taught that in schools. We don't know how to do that self-inventory process. And so one of the things that to me is an anchor for orchestration is that you see potential in others that they may not see in themselves. And the more you can support that process of them going through, it's all a journey for every one of us. We're all going through a journey of figuring out why we're here in the world and what we want to do in the world. But others can often see the potential in you that you might not see. And that is one of the great, if you're leading a band or an orchestra and you believe that somebody has this incredible talent that they're not yet tapping, that is a tremendous responsibility for the person who leads. And so to me, that's one of the values I hope that people who read your book will get, is that you need to be, it's a responsibility to help continually catalyze insights about each person's potential.
I would just add that I think the be ready or not ready is the problem, right? So
what does that mean to you? I mean, when would you know if somebody's ready or not ready? Or
I think there's too much judgment on that, right? On careers, and I think if we start having a more open conversations and maybe systems and empowering people to find their potential that they don't even know. Right, and in a world that is changing so fast, probably you as a leader will find potential in that person that he or her didn't know, and you didn't know that you needed that.
And the old leader too.
The old leader too, right? Because the world is changing so fast, right? So, and it is a longer process. It is a little bit more complex process. Sometimes you feel like it's taking longer than if you determine something, right? More conversation, more listening. But I think at the end, it starts to spark, good ideas on both sides.
We have here many people who's entrepreneurs. They have their own businesses. We have people who works for big companies. And I'm pretty sure that this is something we were discussing about before we start here. Some people was asking themselves, oh my God, I'm here. This is just only a job. I don't care that much. Oh no, I need to work on something that I really believe on, that is my purpose. It's what I want to change the world on that. But something that everyone knows, especially after a little experience, is that a good environment can bring you up, and a bad environment just can destroy whatever you think. How to orchestrate, how to choreograph a team in an environment that doesn't believe on, or where people just is, how do you say, sorry, I forgot the word you just said. When you're not orchestrating, when you are, when you are not just playing against it.
I think there's one piece that, if the environment is really, really bad, I would say get out of it. So, right? So don't try to fix things that can't be fixed. But in the other sense, if there is hope, I think if you become an orchestrator yourself, if even if you're not leading people yet, but start acting more as an orchestrator, listening more, being more detached from your ideas, etc., etc. I think people will notice that. Conspiration. Oh yeah, right. So I think people will notice that. But obviously, I think there are conditions and there are moments, or there are kind of organizations that are not made for orchestrators, right? And they will not succeed. They will not perform. They will be unhappy. Their leadership will be unhappy. And that's fine, and I don't think everyone needs to be an orchestrator, and that's not what I say in the book. But if you, I finish the book saying, don't do it for anyone, don't do it for your organization, do it for yourself, right? Because my final conclusion was that, we as leaders, we're suffering way too much. The price is way too high. Sometimes we don't understand. We just understand when we have a heart attack and boom, gone, right? So, or when something happens, the price is really, really high. So I think the orchestration thing is something that you're going to do for yourself. And by starting doing it for yourself, you're becoming a better person, not only a better leader. And by doing that, I think people will notice. And people will want to be more with you. Not necessarily work more with you, but be more around you and have more fun. And when I'm saying all these things, I'm not saying I do all these things perfectly. So don't think about that. But that's the thought process that I had around it.
So in an ideal world, you've got an organization that commits to orchestration, that reinforces all the behaviors of people being orchestrators, and everybody sees that as the lofty goal. They all want to be able to exhibit that skill set. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got very traditional organizations that absolutely, the antibodies will attack orchestration. Like, no, we can't do that. But the one thing I'd say is it starts at the team level. I mean, ultimately, in any organization, it's a relatively small group of human beings that are focused on solving problems. And if you are that authentic person who leads, if you are the orchestrator, I agree with Bob. I think first off, people want to work with you, and if you start at the team level and you exhibit those behaviors, then people will tend to find you. And there are going to be some that may not like that style. They want to be told what to do, and so that's a matching process, right? But I would not want anybody to walk away with the mindset, it's kind of binary. Either you're in a company, you're in an organization, you're in a government agency or a school that supports it, or if you're not, then why even try? No, do it. It begins with you, with your own motivation, and it can start with a team. It can start with small groups of people, and I've seen example of people who actually were able to infect the organization with more of the possibilities if they do it authentically, because they tend to attract more that want to be able to do things that way. And I've seen corporate cultures transform over time because you have authentic people who lead that are practicing more of these kinds of approaches.
Yeah, this is the last key drive. I will comment now.
Okay.
Autonomy.
Right.
When I was reading about autonomy and the importance of sparking the autonomy on people to bring to people the potential and execution of doing their solving their problems on their own, I immediately thought about a change from a jazz band to a classical orchestra, where all the buzz and chaos of a jazz band just turns into a very organized tone of music, and with someone leading very well there. And we know, and we are in a place of speed. We are in a world of speed where everything needs to be happy, where the evaluations need to be very, very fastly reached, where you need to hire fast, you need to find your product, you need to find your investor, you need to find your ICP. how to do this in a world of speed.
All right, all right. So during the process of the book, I became friends of a famous orchestrator, conductor, Itai Taugam, and he has a few TED talks, and he mentions that in one of the TED talks he mentions very different styles of conductors. Right, so even on the classical music or on the jazz band or whatever it is, there's not only one single style. The orchestrator doesn't kill your style, your way of doing things, or your authenticity. Right, so and I think that on a world of speed, I think there's something that I don't talk in the book, but I think it's like be open. Right, it's not on the book. I think it's like it's beyond that. I think I work with everyone basically younger than myself. That could be a threat, but I transform that into interest and curiosity. And I see lots of very young people just forgetting my age. After a few talks, some people they even say they express, "You're not 61, so that's impossible." So, no, I am, but why? I think it's not a piece that is in the book, but I think it's just because I'm curious and I'm open and I'm not into. There's the detachment, but it's not about orchestration here, but it's just about like how you deal with the word and speed. You keep curious and open, just that.
So yes, so I would say, Bob, I think you've actually given the key is that there are different styles, and I think it's highly valuable to be good at, to be practiced at different styles for different situations. So there are situations where, especially if you're in a larger organization and it's very successful in its field, and somebody's got to choose the music. Somebody's got to help people to pick their roles. Somebody's got to make sure the music, that everybody that comes to the symphony every night is going to get a great experience. And somebody's got to be that kind of person who leads. And then in another context, if it's a startup, if it's a rapidly moving high-tech company, no, you probably need more of that sort of skill set of the jazz band leader. Have any of you ever heard TED Talks? TED. So I used to produce events for TED, and I had the amazing experience one time of producing an event, and I had actually a jazz quartet that did an amazing performance, and then I had the band leader come up afterwards. And I said, so tell me what success looks like in jazz, because here he's giving a perfect example of orchestration. And he said, so what the jazz leader is looking for is that you offer a path that others want to follow, which I thought was just brilliant. The way of thinking is it's you're not telling people what to play. You're saying, here, I think we might want to go this way, and if people follow you, then that's orchestration. And I said, oh, by the way, you guys play amazingly. How long have you been playing together? And he said, we just met. So that to me is the perfect mindset of the orchestrator, is to be able to continually bring the right skill set, the most appropriate skill set to the problem to be solved.
So for me, it seems that the perfect orchestrator or choreographer is someone who understands about not only the organization, not only the business, the processes, but has the experience to lead and to try to bring this path to people. Am I right? Orchestrators are easily senior people or more experienced people?
No, don't think so. I don't think necessarily. It's interesting because I've been writing the book for a couple months, and obviously at work at CINT, I've been talking about that and exchanging, and I see very young people, unexperienced, sort of saying, right, in that sense, coming to me like, say, Bob, I just did an amazing orchestration, don't you think? And I said, yeah, I think so. So I think it's a mindset. I think it's experience will help, as it will help with everything. But I think it's more of a mindset of like playing in a little bit of a different way, right? So than what we have been taught at school, at business school, at work, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's a different mindset, and not necessarily everyone needs to play that way. But I think I've seen lots of little, young people doing little orchestration moments, and in the companies is funny because, say, oh, I just did a little orchestration.
You love Generations, right? What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So no, we had a long conversation before this about younger generations, and I think we're just in a new world. I think that, again, that's one of the reasons that the orchestration mindset is so critical. Is especially young people who lived through a pandemic and they've maybe seen their parents or their parents that did jobs they didn't love so much, or they. That we're in a different era where I often use the word agency. That is, especially if you're younger and you feel like you have some control, or you can find the kinds of problems that you like to solve, or anything that helps to guide you more. That's a tremendous opportunity. And so the more that orchestrators can help young people, especially, to feel like they've got they can take the lead on some problem, or they can be developing these skills on their own. Yeah, it starts off small. But the more passion they can have about solving that problem, the more support they can have for being the ones to take the lead on a project, then that's only going to help to build the people who are going to lead the organizations of tomorrow.
Very good. You mentioned TED Talks, and this book has a great playbook with recommendations of TED Talks, podcasts, quizzes, music to listen to, whatever. So I'm not Jimmy Fallon, but thank you, Bob. Thank you, Gary. This is the Art of Business and People Orchestration. You get more there, so please be comfortable and have a drink. Enjoy the night with us.
Thank you.